LSRTV, your home for sim racing. Live tonight from the track deemed too tough to tame, LSRTV is with you to say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to the Southern 170. It is the 19th race of this 2018 Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series powered by English Auto L.L.C. And we're happy that you're with us on your home for sim racing and iRacing Live, where tonight we return to Darlington, South Carolina for another action here from the Darlington Raceway. Also happy that you're joining us as always on a Monday evening. It's Evan Pasoko, Brian Macklin, Trevin Valderrama upstairs with you with our producer Cisco Scaramuza bringing us to you this evening. And Brian, we head into round number 19, so a lot to keep an eye on. At number 1, only 2 races to go until a new segment starts, and things get really interesting when the championship fight in the playoffs actually kicks off. But also, we've been following this segment 2 title fight all the way through the middle portion of the season here, and while there is a pretty big gap right now between first and second, all of that could still change to critical races tonight at Darlington, and then next week at Indianapolis. A couple of different racetracks sprinkled in here on the calendar could provide some challenges.
Well, and as you said, this is the track that is called Too Tough to Tame, and it really is true to that nature because anything can happen. Dylan Jones, as you mentioned, he has a very big lead right now, 27 points over Andrew Freenars coming into tonight's race. But if he goes out here and has a bad night, he could easily give up half of that lead and then really have to be worried about that when we go to Indianapolis next week. He could definitely still have some issues that could bring those guys back into the fight. There's a nice little fight going on from second through about fifth in the standings as well that we have to keep an eye on. So a lot of action going on right there, but this is one of my favorite racetracks out there, Evan, because this track, it's unique from anything else that you ever get to race on. You don't see any other track that's anything like this. There's 2 different ends of the racetrack that really challenge these drivers. You can't set the cars up for one end of the track and it be good on the other end of the track as well. So this is just going to be a very exciting race, and I am excited to be up here and calling this thing with you guys.
And it should be fun, no doubt. Dylan Jones obviously comes into this one as the big, driver so far in this middle portion of the season. Trevor's lead 27 points to Freenars. Then you got Bowie, who's only 6 points off in the points there in third. And then it's a 4-point gap back to Cozy. So Michael Cozy wants to maybe climb up into third. Gorilla is right there as well. So there's a lot of drivers scrapping for that $50 prize for third place. Of course, you can bump yourself up the higher you go in the segment championship standing. It's not a whole lot to report, though, on the overall championship side of things. That's Brandon Bowie's, actually, who leads the way with his total accumulated 562 points over to this point in the season. He's one of the many drivers tonight that'll be sporting some throwback paint schemes as we come to Darlington. Drivers always like to have a little bit of fun with that every time this racetrack comes up on the calendar. So a lot to talk about tonight, but I think the biggest note, if we have any kind of list and a bullet point of what to keep an eye on, is this is just a fun track to call a race at. Now, in my opinion, not a fun track to race at. It is extremely challenging as these drivers try to survive the 125 laps on tap. That means good news for us. We saw a great race the last time we were out at Watkins Glen, and tonight could have a lot of those similar thrilling aspects.
Having this track challenging, Evan, is an absolute understatement. These drivers have a lot of stuff to work towards for this race. It's one of the hardest tracks that they're going to go to all season, and then having Indianapolis right after this, they had an off week to kind of adjust themselves from road back to oval, so I'm going to be excited to see how they're going to be adjusting back to the oval side of things, and then so on and so forth. But right now, Andrew Freenars and Dylan Jones on the front row, not used to seeing those guys up front, so I'm excited to see an exciting battle all night long between them two.
Qualifying session is drawn to a close. About maybe a third of the field deciding not to take a time into qualifying in this one. A couple of fast cars, a couple of slower cars doing so based on their times earlier in the practice session. But they are set to go racing, so let's go trackside and take a look at your LSRTV starting grid for round number 19. Andrew Freitas will start on a pole position, and this one is the only driver to break the 27-second barrier all night. Both in practice and Q is 27.976, very fast, and will put him on pole position to be accompanied on the outside of the front row by the 11 car, that is Dylan Jones. Spencer Breed, Michael Cozy Jr. team cars back on row 2. They'll start 3rd and 4th position respectively, with David Comstock running out your top 5.
Got to give a big welcome back to David Washington, making his first start in quite a while. He starts in the 6th position here tonight. Kyle Kamer starts in the 7th spot. Then we have Gabe Wood running in the 8th position. Troy Haight starts 9th, and then rounding out the top 10, the last guy to take a time here tonight, Travis Brown will start 10th.
P11 will go to Michael Guerrilla. Brandon Bowie, our overall championship standings points leader, will be starting 12th. 13th will go to Lionel Callisto. Daniel Eberhardt, P14, Daniel Fockingham, P15, and rounding out your 16-car field here for Darlington, Tom Morano.
And a couple of those nice throwback paint schemes on the back row there as well. It looks like the field just waiting on Dylan Jones to get to the grid. The 11th machine not there yet. He is running low on time. If he is going to be able to make it there for the start of this race, always a chance that Dylan Jones may opt to start for the pit lane. And with about a second left, he darts onto the grid. So everybody is going to be able to roll with the field. And we will get set to go green when the field comes around the next time through. We've talked a lot about the Darlington Raceway already, Brian, and really in colloquialism, just speaking on how difficult the track is, the challenging aspects of it, but let's talk about what makes this racetrack so difficult. Obviously, if you look at it from overhead, that's the biggest giveaway. 1 and 2, a lot wider of a corner than 3 to 4. It's much tighter down at that end of the racetrack. The banking is also a little bit higher down at this end of the racetrack with 25 degrees of banking, whereas it's 23 degrees down at the far end of the racetrack, and this track clocks in at 1.366 miles in length. That's how we go racing for 125 laps tonight, and that gets us to 170 miles.
I think the most challenging part about this racetrack is the fact that in order to be fast here, you have to be just a couple of inches off the wall on both ends of the racetrack. And never mind the fact that down in turns 1 and 2, you're trying to carry as much speed as possible. You can be carrying as high as about 165, maybe 170 miles an hour on fresh tires. And you're trying to do that and then get off the corner and get going so you can get down to turns 3 and 4. And then turns 3 and 4 is a much slower corner. You have to be very careful down there as well.
Going to be a lot of action tonight, and again, we're happy that you're spending your Monday evening with us at LSRTV in our Racing Live. The pace car has gone down to the safety of the pit lane. The field is going to be in the hands of the 88. That is Andrew Freitas. We go green for the Southern 170, round 19 of the Real Sim Racing Cup Series. And the top 2 going to want a single file out. In fact, everybody going to want a single file out as soon as they can. The battle on the track will be for P4. Goes to the outside, and it's Comstock to the inside, all the way down the back now as they head to turn 3.
It is absolutely really difficult to run double file here at Darlington, but they're doing such a good job of doing so. Of course, it's the opening lap, so nothing really too dicey going on, but right now, the number 77, Michael Cozy Jr., trying to find his way around David Comstock. He's been having, Cozy has been having a little bit of a struggle going on for these past couple races, so it'll be good to see him do a great finish here at Darlington, but a little gap between the front 3 leaders to that 4th place position, Evan.
Hey, that's the objective, just try to be able to work yourself towards the front, and Freitas leading this race has been able to defend the control car position out as we've completed 2 laps in a race that, if it stays green, not going to be the longest in the world. I have to tell you, all 16 cars on the grid were able to take the green flag in this one, but certainly there's not a ton of space in between drivers right out of the gate here. A move down the back straightaway by the 17 Michael Guerrilla. Going to put him up side by side with Troy Haight. That was a battle for 10th and 11th. and the 78 could have backed out of it and let him go. A lot of the time, Brian, that's all it takes. You flash your nose at the inside, you get a tad bit of actual positioning on the inside of somebody, and they'll let you go. Don't expect to see a ton of side-by-side, especially early in this race. Maybe later when things get a little bit more intense and we're talking about battling for the race lead, then certainly drivers going to resort to that. But if they can help it, these drivers want to be as clean as possible to get through this race in one piece.
Indeed, and the problem I'm seeing right now is that we've already seen two drivers at least that have gained their Darlington stripes. David Washington just took a big chunk off of the turn 4 wall, and it might have some pretty significant right side damage. He's up against the wall again in 1 and 2, as a matter of fact, now side by side with Gabe Wood as they come off turn 2. Wood gets sideways, somehow hangs on to it, but that's going to cost him some time, as it looks like here comes the 17 of Michael Guerrilla, who is easily going to make that pass and move ahead of him into that 8th position. And Gabe Wood is the other driver that I was mentioning that had already gathered their Darlington stripe for the night. Coming off turn 2 about 3 laps ago, he smacked the turn 2 wall and has a nice little stripe on the right side of that car. That's going to be the theme of tonight's race. You know you're going to get up against the wall. The problem is you do not want to get up against it too hard. And if you hit it at the wrong place, especially on corner exit, that's where you're going to do the most damage to the right side of that car, and that's where you're going to also really affect the aerodynamics. These guys are going to have to be extremely careful tonight as far as how far they're going to push the limit. I look at the guys at the front of the field right now: Andrew Freenars, Dylan Jones, Spencer Preet, Comstock. They're pushing the limit, but they're not getting that close to the wall right now. They're staying about a half a lane off the wall, giving themselves enough breathing room to where they have enough an opportunity to make a mistake without slapping the wall.
And that's the pesky thing about this Darlington Raceway, is the fastest way around this joint, pretty much right up top on the outside wall. Just look how close your race leaders are getting. Jones actually got into the wall just a little bit there. Again, that Darlington stripe, pretty much just a statement that you actually competed in this race. You can get up and into the outside wall without it really causing any issues a handful of times. You just don't want to smack the wall. And as we look deeper into these runs and those tires start to wear off, drivers maybe lose a little bit of that edge that they have right now. As we look at a fight for P10, we'll see it's Everhart to the inside of the double O with Gabe Wood. That one's not going to stick. No, the double O drives it in hard, and Gabe Wood up into the outside wall. That's what I'm talking about there. Especially right out of the gate, these drivers are crisp on their moves. But as this race runs on, you start to get pressure. You're going to get in that wall once or twice, and the end of this race might see a really beat-up car in victory lane, or might be somebody who's able to keep their equipment a lot cleaner, I think, than anybody else able to find success in the long run.
Somebody's definitely going to have a scrape on that victory lane circle, but you know, it's all part of the game here at Darlington. You have such close quarters here. Of course, we've been seeing some side-by-side action that just gets so close for comfort, and just so many drivers have something to gain, and now still fighting on between Michael Guerrilla and David Washington. Both have gotten up into the wall already, and you know, that just goes to show how hard they're pushing it early on into this race. They're getting a little bit of a scraping done on that right side of the car, just trying to push it as hard as they can to the limits. Getting into that wall, you know, of course, we've talked about it a lot. It's not what you want to do, but it does show that you're pushing the limits and trying to get everything that you can out of the car.
And at 17, with a little bit of resiliency, is finally able to complete that pass on the inside of the racetrack. They got awfully close, Brian, when we picked up that fight the last time in 1 and 2, and the 98 held his ground. David Washington was about to back out of this thing, let those other cars just kind of push him around and get that positioning and force him up and out of line. But all good fights, I guess, must come to a close. So he does eventually relinquish that number 7 spot. These cars, though, have had very different starts of this race. Guerrilla now up 4, David Washington down 2 from the start of this race. So certainly a little bit of forwards action for one, and a little bit of backwards action for the other. All of that being considered, no changes. 1, 2, and 3. It's still Freenars, Jones, and Preet. David Comstock just recently getting around Cozy at about for 4th and 5th. That one might heat up soon. The 42 made a little bit of a mistake that time off of the corner. Cozy right back into the car length. He's got a good run there in the center, but the 42 is able to pick it back up.
And the scary thing when you're following a car like Cozy is right now with David Comstock is if he makes a mistake and you're too close to him, you're not going to have anywhere to go, because how narrow these corners are. If they get up against the wall and you're running right on his rear bumper and he gets kind of sucked into the wall and loses momentum, you're going to run right into the back of him. So you have to be on your toes the entire way around this track, especially when you are racing for position with the driver, or even if you're just trying to get around a slower car, whether it be a lap car or whatever the case may be. You just have to be extremely careful all night long. You're worried about what kind of mistakes you can make, what kind of mistakes people around you can make. It's insane how much goes into running around this racetrack and how hard it is. That's why you see the attrition level be so high at this racetrack, both in the real world and here on sim racing. It just takes so much mental strength and physical strength to get around this thing for lap after lap after lap.
And it is so strenuous. The straightaways here does give you a small opportunity to kind of relax, stretch those hands out a little bit, make sure they're not getting sweaty up and on the wheel and whatnot. However, again, when you get into the corners, certainly tense throughout this race, it is difficult to settle into a rhythm that could last, the length of a run, to the point where you'd be talking about green flag pit stops or even an opportunity to go green for an extended period of time, which certainly is the case here. We talked about that a lot through this second segment of this Real Sim Racing Cup Series, seeing that car count closer to the 20 drivers or so in comparison to the closer to 25 it was earlier in the season. The fact that these drivers have a little bit more space, and I think especially at a place like Darlington, that certainly helps them out. The separation right off of the restart, less rows, obviously, that the lack thereof, a big accordion effect, has allowed these drivers to get now 16 laps into this race. Big step in the right direction if your strategy banks on a lot of green flag laps.
Yeah, without a doubt. These drivers do such a great job of putting in hard work, and as you were pointing to, this track, you cannot get into a rhythm. This is the one track that the drivers don't have to worry about getting tunnel vision, because as Kelly pointed out, or Brian pointed out in the middle of at the beginning of this race, it's a different turn every single time you're going to turn the wheel. You have to adjust every single time, so you can't just get into that groove. You have to always be up on the wheel, always ready to attack.
Always ready to attack, and a big part of this race, I think a lot of the moves, Brian, may be made if somebody just simply makes some sort of a mistake. You slip up, and you have to be up and on the wheel and take advantage of that. Certainly battle back with Kyle Kamer in the number 8 machine, the 97, Lino Callisto on the inside. He's going to slide through. He was clear on the entry, but here comes the 8 car. So Kamer not willing to roll over. They'll fight side by side all the way through the corner. And 97's going to have the positioning into 1. And I think he'll finally put that one to bed. A little bit of a slide job. Great racing here mid-pack as Callisto fights his way through the P8. It's the highest he's been all night. He's up 5 spots. That makes him one of your bigger movers.
And what a cool battle that was between a couple of old school throwback paint schemes. You see an old Rusty Wallace, old Bobby Labonte paint scheme right there. Those guys used to race around this track in the real world. In those paint schemes, it's so cool getting to see the throwback cars come out here and see what these guys are able to come up with and what kind of tributes they're able to do. And yeah, Lionel Callisto, though, he's having a pretty good run up through the field right now. He started back in the 13th position and he's up to 8th, and definitely looks like he's still got some speed in that car. He's closing in on David Washington for that 7th position now, and I'm very impressed with the speed that he's showing at this stage of the run. Of course, he's 8 seconds behind the race leader, so for him to have any kind of a chance at that, he's going to need a caution most likely, which is not out of this thing by any stretch of the imagination. But I have to believe, Evan Pasoko, if this thing stays green for another maybe 10 laps or so, we might start seeing a cycle of green flag pit-stops, because when I look at the lap times right now and compare them to their fastest lap of the race, they're already losing over 2 seconds a lap from what they can run on fresh tires. And I do believe you'll see these guys begging for fresh tires here in the next about 10 laps or so.
We've already seen 2 drivers now go behind the wall. Both Gabe Wood and Travis Brown involved in single car accidents. Both of them on the front straightaway. Getting out of turn number 4, lost control, heavy contact with the inside fence. Again, both of those were separate single car wrecks, so there was no caution flag because of them. And just like that, you do have 2 drivers out of this race in the very early going, without it really affecting any of the drivers running up towards the front of the field. Another fun statistic, you talk about some of the names in this race. Obviously, drivers going to be fighting for the segment championship, the overall championship, and it's a stat that if you're familiar with the iRacing service, you'll get a kick up of the average strength of field. So the average I rating for the drivers in this race. The strength of field for tonight is 4,800. So certainly some stiff competition fighting for those top spots this evening.
Yeah, absolutely, a lot of competition. We've seen quite a few battles going on, and it's really hard to make some battles out of this racetrack. So kudos to these drivers. The 17 of Michael Grillia took back that position that he had earlier on in this race from 5th from Michael Cozy Jr. He is falling back, but Michael Grillia working his way forward, already getting a handful of positions after starting 11th here tonight at Darlington. But you know, these drivers already seen 2, as you pointed out, retire. You know, it's just really hard to come off these corners because we see drivers get so loose down the backstretch coming off of turn number 2, and then they just send it right into that inside wall. So I'm gonna keep an eye on that trouble spot of everybody, as the number 98 David Washington had a little bit of a sideways action going on in turn number 4. The loud line of Callisto, you get to his back bumper a little bit.
Callisto's there, but the 97 is kind of the meat in the sandwich because Daniel Everhart's behind, and there goes the 97 dropping out of the inside. Callisto gets all kinds of out of shape, and he does a good job recovering, but he obviously forfeits that spot. Everhart gets on a bye, and now Brandon Bowie, your overall championship leader, who hasn't had a ton of fun tonight. He started 12th. He's only picked up 2 spots. It's because 2 cars in front of him have wrecked out of this race. It looks pretty clear to me that the 43 team is just going for survival. Limit the damage maybe on what they get out of this race and try to keep themselves in that championship lead all the way through these final 2 weeks of the regular season. And another fun thing to point out when you talk about that group is the driver who therefore now is in P7 in front of where all that excitement was now a lap ago. David Washington making his first start here again on Monday nights in some time, and he's doing a good job holding his own right now, P7.
Indeed he is, but the driver I'm watching right now is Michael Grillia. He started in the 11th position. He just made his way around David Comstock to move into that 4th position, and when he is not battling with guys for position, he is faster than Andrew Friedenarz and Dylan Jones right now. I believe if he can get some track position, maybe catch a caution and get bunched back up with these guys, that 17 car might be a factor in who's going to be going to victory lane here tonight, because he has been absolutely on rails the last handful of laps. He was gaining time again until he got side by side with David Comstock, and now he's back down to about a 6-second gap off of our race leader right now. But there's one thing for sure, that 17 car is flying right now.
Yeah, he's hustling, and again, he's done all of this without the aid of any sort of a restart or a caution flag to group anybody up. It's been all on his own. Really up those 7 positions, certainly your biggest mover. A battle for P6, or P7, sorry, I should say, pretty much imminent now, and there's the move as Daniel Everhart goes to the inside of David Washington. And at 98, no interest in letting him just go on by. We saw this last time. A challenger came up the inside of the Aegis Ford Fusion. He did not just simply roll over and let him take it like a lot of drivers have, and avoid those side-by-side situations. And he'll dive down to the inside. It looks like the 98 machine headed pit side, maybe, as he slows it way down and tries to get it woed up. And from the wrong side of the commitment code, but he will make it to pit road in lap number 29. Yeah,
now we're starting to see some green flag pit stops, as Brian said. So we'll see what drivers will be coming down as well. You know, again, this is green flag pit stop, so it's going to be a little bit hard to see all these drivers come down without any mistake, as we just saw David Washington do. So he has to have a clean in and out inside of his pit stall. Watching him come down, I'll keep an eye on it, Evan.
So we'll keep an eye to see how all of that plays out. Drivers obviously going to want fuel and tires, Brian, but something tells me a move this early on certainly is a move for those tires. This race has only been green flag for 31 laps, and the tire fall off is already in the range of 2 seconds. So it happens very quickly here.
I think you're seeing the difference between guys maybe considering a 2-stop strategy and a 3-stop strategy in this race. If they're assuming at this point this thing would stay green flag from now to the finish, and what I see David Washington doing is he's going to make this a 3-stop strategy. He's going to pit now around lap 30, then he's going to pit again around lap 60, and he's going to pit one final time around lap 90. He's banking on the fresher tires being able to make up the time off those guys that are going to take 2 stops. And when I say 2 stops, Michael Grillia gets into the wall off turn 2. He got really sideways. Not sure how bad the damage is on that car, but some issues right there. But what I was getting back to, the two-stop strategy, you're going to see guys pit around lap 40 and around lap 80, and that's going to be their only two stops of the night, most likely. And I think that's what we're going to see, and it's going to be very interesting to see which strategy ends up winning when it's all said and done.
We'll certainly keep an eye on that, and Gorilla has been able to get his feet back underneath him after passing Spencer Preet not all that long ago and up into the number 3 spot, but it is a big leap thus far. Then if you want to catch Dylan Jones, Gorilla is going to have to be faster than him to the tune of just a casual 3.8 seconds is the gap that he's working on. If you want to talk about the race leader, that's another 7 seconds. So certainly a big disadvantage for Gorilla now. It'd be a perfect opportunity, I think, for him as we look for more drivers to come down to the pit lane, and maybe he would really enjoy, I'm sure, for a caution flag to come out at this point, give him an opportunity to kind of restart and hit the reset button, because the last time by, Andrew Ferdinand put down a 30.512. Kyle Kamer going to be into the pit lane this time. Ferdinand's last time, 35.68. You compare that to Gorilla in third. He just put down a 30.872. So there is no doubt that all of that working through the pack is certainly worn away at those tires.
Yeah, absolutely. And to make a point to David Washington, he pulled into his pit stall and he got 4 tires, fuel, and he did about 15 to 20 seconds of damage repair, I would assume, because he sat there after the jack went down. So I'm pretty sure he had substantial right side damage that he had to get repaired before he went back out. But we're seeing more people come down pit lane, Evan.
Yeah, more drivers going to continue to trickle down to the pit lane, and maybe that was an unsafe pit road entry for David Washington. We'll see if that is going to be the case on a penalty for the number 98 machine. That would not be good, and kind of takes a little bit out of your return, per se. So a lot of things to monitor. The big risk here with going for that 3-stop strategy to pit at about lap 30 and then 60 and then at 90 is, of course, well, if you pit now and the race leaders are on a different strategy, or whoever may go on a different call, as it will eventually cycle through the race lead, you're stuck a lap down right now. That's a big risk, especially at any point here where an incident could come from one car and necessarily have to come from a big mess.
Indeed, as wow, Lionel Callisto got extremely sideways through the middle of 1 and 2. I thought he was going to spin that car around, but somehow he hangs on to it. But I'm not really sure how at all. But yeah, these guys that are out here on older tires, you also have to be mindful right now. You have guys like Daniel Eberhardt who are flying by you as the caution comes out, and that's going to change everything. Looks like we have a couple of cars around on the front stretch. Michael Guerrilla is around. Looks like the number 48 machine of Tom Morano is around on the front stretch as well, and that is going to change everything, and it will catch a couple of these drivers a couple laps down.
The tough break for Guerrilla, one of the faster cars all night, but it was Tom Morano who got into the outside wall, broke sideways. Tough to tell if he was going to be able to save that 48 machine. It was very similar to the contact that took Gabe Wood and Travis Brown out of these races, where they then spun on their own to the inside wall. But the bad news for Guerrilla is, Trevin, he saw that car in the fence. He gassed low, went low to avoid it. That's where the 48 spun, and both of those cars hard into the inside wall.
Yeah, and we saw this a lot during practice, just drivers trying to keep it straight, but overcorrected a little bit here and there, and, it just happens. You're unfortunately placed at the wrong place at the wrong time, and Brian alluded to it earlier that, you get so close to somebody, you have nowhere else to go. You have to commit to the line that you're in, especially at such a narrow track like this. It's not narrow because there's a lot of runoff room, but that racing line is just so narrow.
So it certainly doesn't take them out of this race, but with a ton of damage, somebody like a Morano who's still limping around is going to try to get maybe whatever they can out of this. Pit lane's going to be open, though. All your race leaders are headed down. If everybody on the lead lap pits, all of those cars who are trapped the lap down from the strategy will have an opportunity to rejoin us, but they're going to have to neglect a trip down to the pit lane. We will see how all of this plays out. Ferdinand, though, first in, all the way down to pit stall number 1. The call is for 4 tires and fuel. Looked like most cars were clean into the box, and not much of a sweat for the 88 machine. Easy off the pit lane for Ferdinand.
A very easy victory for Andrew Ferdinand to get that number 1 spot once again, or to hold on to that number 1 spot. One car I'm not seeing coming off of pit road very quickly after him is the 11 car of Dylan Jones. He's actually still sitting in his pit box, I believe. he has some damage repairs that he is working on. Now he finally rolls up out of pit lane, so going to give up a ton of track position. He was running in the second position. Now with just 9 cars in the lead lap, he's going to fall most likely all the way back to that 9th position. But unfortunate there for the 11 car, but he obviously felt like they had some damage that they needed to get worked on if he was going to be competitive for the second half of this race.
Yeah, and certainly it's not going to be the end of the world. You mentioned of 9 cars in the lead lap because of when that caution flag came out. It's not going to be a ton of cars to get through. Certainly fast drivers now in between him and the race leaders, but we saw Guerrilla do it before that car was beat up, so certainly a clean car means that you can pass cars here at Darlington. My concern might be, though, if this happens to be maybe one of the only caution flags, if not the only caution flag we get this evening, going to be tough to make up for the time. So we'll see how all of it plays out. Certainly a gamble in either direction. They feel like that was the correct call to make. It'll put him back in about 6th position, it looks like, as we wait for the waiver rounds to be complete. Troy Haight, along with Daniel Eberhardt, Dave Washington, alongside those are the drivers who look like they're going to be going for their waiver rounds to rejoin your race leaders. Tom Moreno's obviously falling down, and Kyle Kamer did not stay out to get a lap back. He's on the pit lane for damage repair as well. So about half of those cars, I think, going to be able to rejoin us up on the lead lap.
Yeah, and to make a point, Michael Guerrilla trying to get on pit lane under caution and just had a little bit of a problem getting on there, spun out, and just added insult to injury. He's having a really tough time now, and I just think he's out of contention with all the damage that he has received from his car. He can still certainly log those laps and continue to get some points, but that car is just a little bit too much damaged, and just probably not going to get better from here on out. He was a strong car, moving all the way up from 11th place, currently to the 9th, the last car on the lead lap, but it's going to be a little troubling night for him for this rest of the race.
Certainly will be. Lights go out on top of the iRacing.com pace car, so a restart is due up. Radar selects the outside. It'll put Michael Cozy Jr. on the bottom of the racetrack. Again, Cozy's fighting for a lot here, as we mentioned at the top of the broadcast. And if you're just joining us, this is the second to last race on this 10-race Segment 2. And in the Segment 2 championship standings, Michael Cozy Jr. came into tonight 4 points behind Brandon Bowie for what is third place. Third place gets $50 at the end of the segment. Bowie's right there behind him, though, restarting in third. So a lot of championship implications as we close in on the midway point for Darlington. Green flag gonna fly, we're back and away, and it is way early for Farinars. He'll pull a ton of space down to turn 1, and Cozy is gonna be left defending everybody else.
He is, and David Comstock's going to move into that 3rd position right now, and you see everybody very quickly getting single files. We have a spin off of turn 1, or in the middle of turn 1. David Washington got turned sideways going off into the corner. Looks like he had a little bit of contact with the outside wall and then went around and somehow managed to keep that car pointed in the right direction. But Daniel Eberhardt had almost nowhere to go. I'm not quite sure how he was able to get checked up from that, but unfortunate for both of those drivers back there. Meanwhile, everything back at the front of the field has settled down. Single file all the way through the field. You see these guys just trying to get up to speed here. Now we have a battle going on around the 8 car of Kyle Kamer, as you see Daniel Falkingham making his way past him and moving. And actually, they're just fighting for a lucky dog position right now, it appears.
Yeah, that battle is going to be for position for a lucky dog spot, and looks like that it is going to be Haight in the 78 machine who's chasing down Kamer at the moment. Kamer very much intertwined with a lot of your lead lap cars, so only 9 cars going to be on the lead lap. Surprised that not everybody just decided to stay out, get their lead lap back. Obviously did not work out, so fast cars like David Washington and Daniel Eberhardt stuck now off of the lead lap, along with Haight and Kamer, who you had just mentioned, were battling for that lucky dog spot. There's a lot of fights on track. 3rd, 4th, and 5th all going at it right now, but a battle for the race lead also may be in the works. The 77 looked to the inside, didn't commit, but Cozy certainly all over the back of the 88 right now, hounding him in 1 and 2.
Yeah, here he goes off into the backstretch here at Darlington, trying to challenge for that race lead. Again, we talked about him being a little bit further back in the pack these past couple races, now challenging for that race lead to that right or left corner panel. of Andrew Freenars. We'll see what he does going into turn number 1. It's been a really big trouble spot for some drivers, so watching him now getting to that back bumper, just going to track him through this turn down to the backstretch.
Down the back straightaway is where they come now. The battle for 3rd, 4th, and 5th is settled down in just a little bit. Bowie going to go to the inside. It was a very late move. That was for 4th. But Brandon Bowie dove late and drove in hard, and he snatches 4th away for David Comstock, who's going to fall back to where he started in this race. And all of that fighting has allowed your top 2 to pull away by a second. As Cozy continues to hunt for P1, they've pulled a good second on 3rd on back.
A really nice battle starting to shape up for that race lead. Michael Cozy Jr. all over the back bumper of Andrew Freenars. Now he looks to the inside as they come off turn 4, gets a great run through the middle of the corner. Can he make it stick down the front straightaway? It looks like Freenars is going to have the advantage. He was able to carry that momentum on the outside line just enough to stay ahead of him, but Cozy stays right on his back bumper as they work through 1 and 2. And this is the one thing that makes this track so difficult too. When you have somebody challenging you like that and putting that much pressure on you, it makes it so much more difficult to not make a mistake and get up against the wall. This is where you're going to see more mistakes happen. Side by side once again for the race lead. Cozy on the bottom, but Freenars is able to carry that momentum again to hold on to the race lead.
And so very comfortable racing with one another. You saw the 88 slice a little bit low off of the corner, just in front of the nose of the 77. Obviously, Freenars with enough faith in Cozy to make that kind of a move. They're certainly not nervous around each other, but that did allow Jones to close in. That second gap that I was touting that those top 2 had has really been erased all of a sudden out of nowhere, as the 11 now comes within striking distance. And now if I'm Cozy, I have even more incentive to get going. Not only do I want to make a pass for the race lead, but it almost looks like if I don't do it sooner rather than later, I'm going to drop back to 3rd. So we'll see if Dylan Jones maybe pushes that 77 ahead. Cozy not the best exit at a quarter number 2, and he certainly has to switch into defense mode now. Jones is there. 3-way fight for the race lead.
Michael Cozy Jr. has to make his car the whole entire width of the racetrack right now, but tries to do it, but cannot get the job done. Dylan Jones is there. We'll see what happens going into turn number 1. He's going to slice down. Dylan Jones is going to ride up after hitting that apron just a little bit. You can see what happens. Just hitting the apron a little bit does to your car. It upsets it just enough. And if they continue to battle, that gap between Andrew Freenars and Michael Cozy Jr. will begin to grow bigger and bigger. It's already grown 0.3 of a second. He was on the back bumper before Dylan Jones got there, Evan.
And a caution flag going to come out lap number 52, and it is on the back straightaway. Daniel Eberhard had just passed Troy Haight and had taken over the number 11 spot, second car, who was running a lap down, and the 90 machine is going to spin all on his own. And at quarter number 2, he got up and into the outside wall. It was a very long slide. Looked like he had recovered it, and when he tried to turn that car back up the hill, significant way to go from that inside wall to the outside wall to make turn 3. The car hadn't completely settled down, and it spun out. You can see it on the LSRTV replay. Locks it up. Nobody gets into him. So no harm, no foul. But Eberhard going to trigger a second yellow on the night, and it's going to bring everybody down to the pit lane just outside of what is 70 laps to go in this race. So this might kind of eliminate those 2 different pit strategies. Everybody might be on a 2-stopper from this point to the end, including this trip down. They're led by Freenars. He was first in and out last time. We'll see how the 88 is this time.
It would certainly appear that the strategies have been completely changed for this point of the race. Now it's all about your pit crew not making any mistakes and you not making any mistakes as you get into your pit box. And it looks like everybody at the front half of the field does a very good job with that. Andrew Freenar is looking for a fast pit stop to hold on to the race lead. I'm pretty sure he's led every lap of the race up to this point, and it looks like he is going to once again easily win the race off the pit road. It's going to be a great battle for second on back. Brandon Bowie is going to come out in second, and then I really wasn't sure who came out after that. It looks like Spencer Preet, then Michael Cozy, and maybe Dylan Jones after that. So what a great battle coming off pit road.
A great fight off for the pit lane, and it once again ends in favor of the 88. Second yellow flag of the night will take a quick opportunity to step aside. A lot more racing action still to come from the Darlington Raceway. You're watching the Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series, powered by English Auto L.L.C. at iRacing Live. Your race leaders, Andrew Freenars, through 53 laps.
chair of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Will it be Tim Hogan? It's going to be Christopher DeMary at the line.
And back live from the virtual Darlington Raceway. Lights back out on top of the iRacing.com pace car. 2 caution flags thus far as we get set for a restart that will have 56 down and just a little bit over halfway still to go in tonight's Southern 170. Once again, Andrew Freitar is going to be in control. He's led us to every single restart thus far. And again, he chooses the outside of the racetrack. It's a good job as they come into turn 4. Green flag flies, and we go back and away. Much easier job for Buiho. He defends in the number 2 spot. But Kokosi Jr. losing out in that, who ends up 3rd.
Indeed he does. And you see, oh, we got another wreck in the back. This time David Washington does go around up against the wall. And I don't believe we have a caution on the racetrack as they were able to stay off of the racing surface for the most part. But Washington this time does make heavy contact. He was trying to go around the 48 machine of Tom Morano. And unfortunately, it just did not go well for him. Tom got up into the wall and turned him around to knock him down. And most likely is going to end his night here.
Yeah, you'll see the replay on that one. That's going to be the second consecutive incident in which Tom Morano gets into the outside wall, and it comes down and collects another car. It's been a tough go for the driver of the 48. Certainly, you got to feel bad for Dave Washington, the sort of bystander and all of that, and it looks like Tom Morano has brought that car behind the wall. Washington, meanwhile, in 98 Ages entry, has straightened out, and he keeps on going. Brandon Bowie, though, was very quiet at the start of this race trip, but he was running around in 10th and kind of thought out loud maybe he wasn't a fan of Darlington, just trying to avoid losing points tonight. He's looking to make gains in the Segment 2 championship. He's all over the back of the 80 to Freitas now for the race lead. He's really come to life.
And you can already see how many drivers have got affected by it as Brandon Bowie gets a little too close to that apron, gets a little sideways, but able to save it now in the clutches of Michael Cozy Jr. going into turn number 1. Gotta love these restarts because they make for such fantastic racing. We've already seen it happen. Now these guys are all bunched up again, and we'll see if they can get another green flag run going. But this about 6-7 car run right now into turn number 3 is doing such a great job. Now Brandon Bowie down to the bottom side of Andrew Freenars coming off of turn number 4. We'll see what happens going into turn number 1, Evan.
Yeah, the 43 trying to make the move, but making that little bit of an earlier dive down off of the corner hurt his front stretch speed, so he'll tuck back in line. Cozy, though, in the 77, last run was in that position, had a lot of opportunity maybe, but it was not able to get that little bit more, and Farinars has been oh so good at not even making that car wide, Brian, just not opening up the door. He hasn't, made reactionary moves. He's not going high or low, blocking to people. He's just running his line. And at a place like Darlington, if you got a very fast car, use it up all of the racetrack, it's hard to get around him. We'll see if Bowie can crack the code. If not, though, these top 5 are not splitting up at all. So certainly somebody maybe might find a key.
Well, and the thing that I find amazing right now is I look at Andrew Freenars and I look at the guys behind him, and Freenars looks so smooth all the way around the racetrack. You don't see him getting that car out of control. He's not sideways coming off the corners. He is just smooth on the gas, off the gas, all the way around the racetrack. I look at Brandon Bowie, I look at Michael Cozy, at Spencer Preet, all of these guys behind them. They're kicking the back end of the car sideways coming off the corner every single lap. And it's amazing how they're able to keep those cars underneath them. What I can say is, whoa, Dylan Jones has a problem coming off turn 2. He's down on the apron. He's going to give up a couple of positions. Looks like the number 97 of Lionel Kalisto is going to get by him, and he's going to give up a little bit more ground as well. But what I was getting ready to say is when you have a car as smooth and as easy to drive as you have Andrew Freenard, it makes it easy for you to run your line and be able to hold these guys off. And let's remember this much, he's also saving those tires pretty well by not getting that thing sideways.
And Jones just spun it again now, that time at a turn 4. He's had a couple of meetings with the outside wall, and he just can't recover. And that time he went all the way around on the front straightaway, locked it up on the brakes. It spun to a stop, no caution, and we stay green. But the night started off very good for Dylan Jones after qualifying in the number 2 position. Again, he can't have a terrible night. The car count helped him, but that 27-point advantage not looking pretty good right now with Andrew Farinars leading this race and Jones having fallen down to P10. So there may be some plot twists left to come in the segment 2 fight for the overall lead, not only just those other positions that we had been talking about a lot tonight.
Yeah, and with such a tight, close point standings, you just need to be so fine here at racetracks like this. You need to make sure that you're not going to be pushing it too hard, and that's exactly what happened with Dylan Jones, unfortunately. Now he has to regroup, bounce back. He's ready to go. He knows what limits he has, but his tires are going to be a little bit more roasted after that. So hopefully he can just stay ahead of all of that before another caution comes out, and just hopefully regroup and go down to the pit lane and get some tires, because he was a contender. He was second on the grid. He was doing really well until that just happened, Devin.
And that's just kind of how things go, is we talked about not being able to really settle into a pace in this race, and we'd having to be, I should say, up on the wheel the entire night. A couple of small mistakes, you get out of your rhythm for a lap or two, and just like that, your night is really falling apart. Still got a long way to go, though, for himself to catch back up and try to make the best of this. A lot of fun, and also still going on the racetrack. We'll have 67 laps complete this time by, and that means that we've crossed the halfway point in tonight's Southern 170. So let's take this opportunity to look at our iRacing Midway Race Break, brought to you by iRacing, the world's premier online racing game with professionally organized racing from NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, and more. At lap number 68, Andrew Farinars has still led all the way through, and pole sitter continues now with a 2/10 of a second advantage over your latest second-place challenger, Brandon Bowie, who's tucked in line in second. Michael Cozy Jr. tucked up behind in third as well. He and Spencer Preet have traded out these third and fourth spots a handful of times tonight. Preet tucked up just behind Tim at about only about a 10th of a second off. And then you've also got Lionel Kalisto behind, rounding out your top 5. David Comstock up at a number 6 spot right now. Daniel Falkenham has actually had a very quiet evening. Haven't talked much about that City Chevrolet. He's in 7th spot right now. He actively is your biggest mover on a racetrack, tied with Kalisto for being up 8 spots. Kyle Kamer behind is in that number 8 spot. Michael Guerrilli runs in 9th place, and then Dylan Jones, courtesy of the spin, has fallen to the end of the lead lap in P10.
Yeah, last car on the lead lap, as you mentioned. First car on the lead lap currently right now is Daniel Everhart, running in the 11th position. He's looking for a caution so he can get that lucky dog and get back on the lead lap. Troy Haight is running in the 12th position right now. Then we have David Washington, whose night just continues to get worse and worse. He's 13th, and he is 1 lap down. The rest of these drivers are multiple laps down and already have actually retired from the race here tonight. Tom Morano will run 14th, or will come home 14th. Gabe Wood is 15th, and Travis Brown rounds out the 16-car field here tonight. And that has been a look at your iRacing Midway race break. For more information on the wide variety of sim racing possibilities online, visit iRacing.com to sign up today. And Evan, right now we're actually celebrating 10 years of iRacing. They have some pretty cool series going on in commemorative or commemorating 10 years of iRacing service.
Yeah, there's been a couple of throwback series up on the iRacing official stuff for some fun in the last week. And I'm not sure if, I think today is the official 10th anniversary or 10th birthday, if you will, of the iRacing service. You know, the folks who are at the office had a big cake, and a lot of the people on the iRacing service were treated to, I think, a $5 credit for iRacing's 10-year anniversary. If you want to be a part of it for the next 10 years, there's no better time to sign up now. More info at iRacing.com/membership. You're looking at a replay. Michael Cozy Jr. had a fantastic save in number 77. He got loose coming out of turn 4, had some help, and used every inch of the asphalt to the inside wall. That was his second look. It will cost the 77 some spots. He falls to P5, but certainly a good piece of driving for him. And again, if you wanted to get involved, that link is iRacing.com/membership. The big thing that I want to focus on now is certainly the fact that the caution flags have mixed up the strategy. Trevor, the question was, do you go for the 2-stopper? Do you go for the 3-stopper? I believe that after that last trip down to the pit lane under caution, I don't see drivers really cutting this race into 2 more stops. You'd be talking about like 20-lap runs. It's very short, so I would think that most drivers pretty much on the same page here. Maybe coming to pit at about lap 85, closer to 90, split this run in half. That is, again, assuming that we can go green to the end.
Yeah, and it's just going to get tougher for all these drivers to continue to use these tires up going through each and every turn. And we've already seen a couple cautions here tonight, and I wouldn't be surprised to see one more, because this is, one of the toughest tracks that they're going to go to on the calendar here this year. But, doing a great job here, and strategy is always a big important part. You come in with some kind of idea of what you're going to do for this whole entire race, and there's always a wrench being thrown into your plans. But, really excited to see how these drivers are going to continue to press on, and what drivers are going to try and do maybe an undercut for some other kind of strategy, because obviously Dylan Jones needed to do something drastic to get back up to some top spots if he wants to keep that points lead, Evan.
Yeah, and I think that's the objective. Certainly a lot of drivers came into this race maybe bracing to go into salvage mode, and a few drivers who have had issues thus far may have already had to flip that switch. But an impressive stint for Brandon DeBowie and Lionel Kalisto. We'll go back to that in a minute. There is another caution flag. It's a spinner, and it is Daniel Eberhardt again. The 9D is going to push up, but it looks like he will not get tagged. And another rough night for the Power Check 90 machine. Another one all on his own, as he got up and into the outside wall and then lost that car coming off of turn number 4. A rough go for Eberhardt. We'll check us up again. He tagged Daniel Falkenham, and that was an absolutely stellar save for the 1 car. Not sure how he did erect that, but that was a masterclass in driving for Falkenham to keep that a 1-car wreck.
I was getting ready to say, we talked about Michael Cozy's save a few laps ago. I think that is going to be the save of the race right there, because you looked at that car and it was pointed right to the outside wall, and somehow he kept that car off the wall. Has minimal damage to the right side from where he made contact with Eberhardt's car, but compared to what it could have been, I think he's very thankful for where he's at right now. And this is going to completely change the strategy now, because you're at that point of the run where when we go back green, you're going to have about 45 laps left. I think this could potentially be the last time these guys come to pit road, assuming we stay green from here to the finish. But you could still potentially see somebody that maybe knows they don't have the speed to outrun Andrew Freenars, maybe try to split this run in half and see if they can take advantage of fresher tires to unlap themselves and run all the way back around and try to pass them.
And certainly the caution flag is going to dictate which strategy gets implemented from this point on to the end, but going to be the last time in. And big advantage here for Freenars. Look at the gap he has coming down to the pit lane. He's got a ton of space to the rest of the cars. Bowie was about 5 car lengths off of him on the way down to pit road, so as long as the 88 doesn't really butcher it, in a pretty good spot to once again defend. We talk about self-inflicted errors a lot in this series, Trevor. We've seen fast cars lose races because they could have put a complete race together, and the 43 made it an awfully good fight for the disadvantage But again, Farinar's cool and calm under pressure, leads off of the pit lane again, and will once again have the opportunity, therefore, to control the upcoming restart.
Yeah, and he's been through so many restarts already. He knows where he wants to go. He knows how to get in front of all these drivers going into turn number 1, and that's really the most important part of going into turn number 1. You need to make sure that you have every single line to yourself. You cannot allow for a driver to be on your side going into turn number 1, because that's just going to be a whole of a lot more troubling into that turn, because we've seen how tight it is going too wide, and these restarts always give something good. So really excited to see. And of course, Brandon Bowie is gonna have to try and do something a little bit different to try and get to that side of Andrew Freenars into turn number 1.
And we'll see if the lights do go out on top of the pace car the next time by. Advantage here is I was thinking maybe we would see Eberhard get back to the lead lap, but of course he was the driver involved in the incident, so Troy Haight is going to be your lucky dog car. He'll go back around to the lead lap. Only 3 drivers retired from this race. Travis Brown and Gabe Wood both wrecked out of this race with single car accidents in the opening 15 laps, and then of course we saw Tom Moreno in the 48 get collected in another driver's mess. He has also gone behind the wall, but other than that, everybody else still out and on the racetrack. And if there's any point in this race where we were going to be able to go green all the way through to a complete cycle of pit stops and whatnot, Brian, it was, I think, going to be that early stage when we got to the point where those drivers who won that 30 stop strategy came down. I just don't see this race having that 40 lap green flag run at the end. Now, obviously, anything is possible. But that being said, the way that these drivers have been racing tonight, we've seen a lot of good stuff, but you're not going to see that timidness certainly this late in the race. And we've seen single car wrecks. We might have some car-to-car contact coming up, I would say. Buckle of belts, because late race at Darlington is always fun.
Absolutely it is, and we've seen the attrition factor really play into this thing all night long. Some of the drivers that normally don't make mistakes. Daniel Eberhard is not a driver that makes mistakes. David Washington is not a driver that makes very many mistakes. Dylan Jones, he's won how many races over the summer stretch? I believe he's won 5 out of the last 7 or 8 races. I mean, he has been absolutely unbelievable over the last couple of months, and he made mistakes here tonight. And that's just what this track does to these guys. It challenges you in ways that no other racetrack does, just because, again, of how much it requires your mental strength to be up there, along with your ability to run around this track for lap after lap after lap. It's just one of the most grueling racetracks on the schedule, and that's why you see only certain drivers really rise to the occasion when we come here.
And we'll see if this is going to turn out to be the final race start on the night as the pace car heads down and in, and we get set for a 44-lap dash to the end. For the track too tough to tame, the 43 tries to get a good jump, but he inside. He does a very good job at a tire spin. Brandon Bowie was good out of the gate, but he's so slow now, and the 37 of Preet gives him a huge boost on the inside as the 1 car of Falkenham's going to come topside, and now they wreck behind.
And that was the 11 of Dylan Jones. Looks like the 17 of Michael Guerrilla as well. Maybe a little bit more contact right behind them. But those 2 drivers got into each other, and unfortunately is going to bring out the caution. It was just a chain reaction from everything we saw on the restart with Brandon Bowie. These guys just could not get up to speed and get going, and they all kind of collided going into turn 1. As you mentioned, that car-to-car contact's beginning to happen. These guys are getting more and more impatient as the laps wind down.
Yeah, Kalisto dove 3 wide to try to get around Bowie, and then it was a huge shunt by Preet to kind of knock him up about 15, 20 miles an hour. So the 97 is stuck way too low. He tries to come back up, and I think he spooked Troy Haight. Haight slams on the brakes and essentially just brake checks the 11 of Dylan Jones, and well, that is where the contact comes from. Jones then gets hit from behind from Guerrilla. That is the spin, and that is your 4th caution flag of the evening. And it'll check things back up, and this is not necessarily a yellow that's going to bring drivers right back down to the pit lane. If we go green for, 20 or so laps and get a yellow, kind of split this run anywhere near halfway, I think drivers will decide to come down, even though they don't need to for fuel. And even though it's not necessarily, a mandatory stop for tires, I think that if you get a decent length run, at this point, drivers will come in to top off just for the benefit that it gives them, but 1 lap, not the case. So I don't expect any of your race leaders giving up track position here.
No, absolutely not. And you just got to make sure that you can make it to the end. Of course, these caution laps will help with your gas mileage and everything. You see them go down onto the apron and let that lap car by. But doing such a great job again. Just trying to get everything that you can in this restart. Just tried to predict it too early. Spencer Bree did, and unfortunately, bad things did happen. Corey Yinden, you saw the result of that, and I don't think we're done seeing yellow flags come out tonight. It's just such a tough track, and with all the intensity happening, with only 2 races to go, including this one, it's only going to get more and more interesting from here. I'm really excited to see Indianapolis next week, as that's the last race on the regular season, and then we just go into our rounds of playoffs. So really excited to see how this all comes about.
The lights on top of the pace car stay on for one more lap around. I want to remind you that your coverage of the Full Throttle Racing Cup Series is brought to you by English Auto L.L.C. English Auto is a full-service luxury automobile repair center in Odenton, Maryland, conveniently located to serve both the Baltimore and D.C. markets. English Auto specializes in Jaguar, Land Rover, Mercedes, Volvo, and BMW service. Founded in 2007, English Auto is now in its 11th year of business, with a staff that has over 60 years of combined experience in the automotive service industry. English Auto has an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau. For more information, you can visit them online at www.englishauto.us. And you can also connect and engage with them on social media at facebook.com/English Auto and on Twitter at English Auto LLC. For more information, proud title sponsor of the Full Throttle Racing Cup Series, powered by English Auto LLC. The lights should be out this time. It'll line us up for a restart, I think, with 39 to go, if that's the case.
Indeed it is, and I believe we're going to get that one to go right here. You see the drivers beginning to double up as they get to the start-finish line, and absolutely the lights will go off on the pace car, so we're going to see this go after it once again. And I think this lane choice by Andrew Freenars, taking the outside line like he has pretty much all night long, that has really played a big factor in why he's been able to get such a good launch. The outside line just has a little bit more grip coming off the corner. When you get up into the gas and try to get up to speed, you can just really power up a lot easier than these guys around you can. And I think that's why we saw Brandon Bowie have so many issues on that last restart, and why Michael Cozy on the bottom of the racetrack is going to have to be extremely careful when they get going. This also gives a guy like Daniel Falkingham, who starts on the outside line right behind Freenars, to have an opportunity to go after it and see if he can't gain some track position and maybe be able to challenge for that race lead.
That's the goal. We've seen many challengers tonight as several drivers have gotten there to the bumper, even on a rare occasion, a flash the nose at the inside. But through all of that, every single time, it is Andrew Freenars who has come out on top. The pace car dives down as the field gets set to round at a quarter number 4, looking for a restart with 39 laps to go for the Darlington Raceway. Freenars puts the right foot down. The green flag flies for backing away. Cozy not good though on the inside. Here comes the one of Daniel Falkingham. He'll slide high and he'll take over second as Cozy falls to third in the center of 1 and 2.
Coming all the way from 15th place, going down the backstretch now. Daniel Falkingham trying to track Andrew Freenars going into turn number 3. Now the 37 of Spencer Preet trying to do a great job. Does a little bit of sideways move right in front of David Comstock, and now a little bit of a tap on that outside wall. Dylan Jones as well coming up through the field, rebounding nicely after a little bit of an incident. David Comstock continues to fall back.
He continues to slide. It is not been a good jump out of the gate for him. And another bobble. Here comes Brandon Bowie now to the inside. The 43 dives low on the back straightaway. He's about a half a car length into the corner, and he gets all the way clear as he slides up to the outside wall. So another spot down for David Comstock. The flip side of all of this is Dylan Jones is really taking advantage of the couple of race starts he's had here. He was 10th not that long ago, and with Andrew Freenars leading, we were talking about the chance that maybe the 88 makes the Segment 2 Championship a real fight going into next week in Indianapolis, but Jones now climbed back into the top 5, getting a lot of those points back.
And that car is beat all to death right now. You see damage on the front, on the rear, on the right side, and on the left side. He has been in all kinds of mess tonight. and still is able to drive this thing back up into the top 5. Very impressive by Dylan Jones. And something else I'm seeing is that Daniel Falkingham has really managed to keep that gap close between himself and Andrew Freenars for the race lead. I've seen this a lot tonight, though, Evan Pasoko, because we've seen guys be able to stay with that 88 car for about 10 laps or so, and then after we get past that lap 10 mark on the run, you really see Freenars just begin to gap these guys and get away. And I think that's just a result in how well his car is handling. He just isn't fighting with it. He's not working that car hard like the rest of these guys are. So he's able to keep them tires on the car for a lot longer than everybody else.
And that has certainly been key over the course of the 91 laps that have been completed thus far. Freenars leads your 15th place starter, Falkingham, by 2 car lengths. And it is that one of a shade who, again, not all that long ago, was talking about how quiet his night had been. And it had been, for the most part, a good thing. When we talk about you, you're either in a big battle and sometimes has ended up in a wreck. So the one Bashid has quietly picked his way through. It's the highest he's been all night, and they have some space. Cozy and Preet 3-4 dropped back a little bit for your race leaders. Preet probably could have made a move on Cozy there if he really wanted to for third, but I think both of them would rather work together in the slightest of bits just to keep the 11 Dylan Jones behind both of them. We start fighting with another. Jones immediately gets into the picture, so I don't think they're necessarily teaming up, but certainly working in the interest of both of them. So that's something to keep a half eye on, but Falkingham needs to make a move soon. If these drivers are able to stay there for 5 laps or so, and then if the move doesn't get made, they start to fade. The ones starting to go to the wrong way on those intervals.
Yeah, and you just gotta track him. You gotta know where he's good, and gotta figure out how to get better where he's good. As the number 11 just blew up going down the front stretch, I was worried that was gonna happen with all the incidents that he has gone through today, but he's gonna pull that onto the apron and gonna pull that off of the track and probably into the garage. So his night will be unfortunately over. Big championship implications, Evan.
Yeah, big championship implications, certainly. So it's going to be a tough call if this does mark the end of the evening. Make it this far. Sometimes, again, not able to close this thing out completely and all the way to the end, Brian. We're working lap number 95 now, so this time by 30 laps to go. With the track too tough to tame, has anybody shown you that they've got enough to get around Freenars? A ton of challengers, but nobody's had that little bit extra oomph they've needed.
I really don't think so at this point. I've seen guys be able to run with him for a handful of laps, but nobody that's really been able to challenge him. The only person that's really gotten to him and made any type of a challenge was Brandon Bowie, and Bowie is all the way back in that 5th position right now, so he's really not in a position to challenge at all. I think at this point you're just kind of hoping that Freenars makes a mistake and that you can capitalize on it. If you're Daniel Falkingham, you just need to try to stay in his mirror, get up there and show him that you're close enough to where if he makes a mistake you can capitalize, and then you just have to wait and see if it happens. But based on how clean that 88 car looks, I don't think you're necessarily going to see a mistake out of him. I believe he's probably the only car in the field that doesn't have a Darlington stripe. That whole car looks like it's still just fresh off of the truck. So he has done an absolutely incredible job so far tonight.
An incredible job thus far. A lot of drivers have struggled, though, as this race kind of gets down to crunch time. Just close this one out. And Michael Guerrilla in the number 17 machine officially retiring from this race. Just that last time by will leave us with 9 on the lead lap, assuming everybody else can get that little bit extra and try to get to the end of this one. Drivers really struggling with that attrition rate at the very end of this Southern 170. Freenars, the constant, hasn't made a mistake. We've seen just about everybody make a mistake, and a point that I made very early on, Trevin, is this race could go one of 2 ways. Your race winner could have a destroyed race car because it's absolutely, chaos and a free-for-all. Or the guy who wins this race could have one of the cleaner cars, having stayed out of trouble. Not at all surprised. Freenars, Falkingham 1-2, even Cozy 3rd. All those race cars very clean compared to most. Yeah, they've certainly got their little bit of a Darlington stripe, but they haven't been bouncing off the walls like some other cars, and that has certainly been a difference maker in this race.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I said. The car going to victory lane is going to have a little bit of a stripe on there, not some bent up sheet metal like we've seen before, but you just got to be so clean here. The person who's the cleanest, obviously you're not going to be 100% clean because this is Darlington, but whoever's the cleanest car is really just going to be the one who makes it to the end first, because this is such a hard track, and with the racing lines that there are, and with how you're coming off of turn 2, coming off of turn 4 as well, we've seen that's really the struggle part for most of the drivers here tonight. It's really tough to see, and the question I'm asking myself is, yes, Spencer and Michael Cozy are working together, but how long is that going to last?
Yeah, at some point maybe they do have to turn on one another, and as the 77 now with Cozy starts to close in on a Falkenham, and we have seen Daniel fall off the back of Faridar's. You have those couple of laps where you're sporty enough to keep with him, and he is just so good when it comes to being consistent, and eventually it becomes too much. So I think maybe once they get the Falkenham, it becomes a three-way fight, second, third, and fourth. Maybe that's when the gloves will come off. It has been some time since somebody not named Dylan Jones or Andrew Faridar's have won here on Monday nights in this Full Throttle Racing Cup Series. The segment started at Michigan. It was Brandon Bowie who took home the win, and Michael Guerrillia took home the win after that. It looked like that the segment 2 points were going to be really wide open up for grabs. Since then, it has been Dylan Jones 5 of the last 6 weeks, and Andrew Faridar's split that streak up just a few weeks ago at Pocono. He got his 3rd win on the season. The top 2 in the points have been putting on a clinic, and it looks like it's going to be another one in the bag for those drivers if Faridar's can hang on. Certainly with Jones, though, having that engine failure after a rough night, Faridar's really wants this win. It could be huge for him.
Yeah, right now it looks like he could gain about 12 or 13 points on Dylan Jones going into the finale of the Segment 3's championship. So definitely gives him an opportunity, maybe not necessarily, Segment 2 championship, but may not necessarily give him a big chance at the championship, but at least it gives him the opportunity where if something else like this happens to Dylan Jones again next week, he could potentially walk away winning that big money and that big championship going into the playoffs. That's a lot of momentum if you're Andrew Faridar's. And just to know that you're the one guy that has been able to split up the dominance out of that 11 car, like you just mentioned, Evan, he's won 5 out of the last 6 races in this series. It's a very, very hard thing to watch as a competitor. You're out there every week, you're trying to find a way to beat him, and to only be able to do it one time has got to be a little bit frustrating, as we have a caution that's going to change everything. A wreck down in turn 1. Looks like it's going to be the number 37 of Spencer Preet going around. I think Bowie might have got caught up in it as well.
There was almost a wreck as Cameron Washington tried to slow down. But yeah, Bowie was involved in this one. Spencer Preet was in that 4th position. He got really sideways at a 4, and he kept his foot in it. That car never really regained traction and drove it hard into the corner. He comes up on the 43 a tad bit, and Preet really at that point, you talk about these drivers trying to fight for it. I think that was the gloves off point. He didn't want to lift, and both of those cars hard into the outside wall. Bowie gets a ton of damage, and Spencer Preet taken out of this one's going to fall all the way down with the damaged car. And now we find ourselves with an interesting position, Trevin, because I said if we split this in half, cars will probably want tires. Pit road is going to be open. Do you take none? Do you stay out? Do you go for 4? Or do you go for 2? This is your chance to make a big move on Andrew Faridar's. Looks like all the drivers headed in. We'll see what the strategy is going to be.
With watching these guys as long as I have, I'm saying that they're going to go for 2, but, it is these guys as well, and, they could surprise you. So watching all these drivers go down pit road, I'm really excited to see what everybody's call is going to be. Obviously going to be watching that first place machine of Andrew Faridar's has been so dominant here tonight. Started first, currently first right now, but we'll watch him go into his pit box here at Darlington and see what we do. Passes Dylan Jones. We're going to see that right side go up for sure, and we'll see anybody else doing that as well. Yes, right side's up, and I think it's going to be left sides as well, Evan.
Yeah, so he'll go for the 4-tire call. I'm surprised nobody wanted to go for the 2 and maybe hope the track position would be in their best interest. So close in a battle for second. And I think Daniel Falkenham was able to defend it. Michael Cozy Jr. so close to taking the spot away. He is unable to, and with all of that drama, no changes inside of your top 3 from the Darlington Raceway. A exciting finish coming up in the Southern 170. We'll take one more opportunity while race flag is under caution conditions to take an opportunity to step aside. And when we come back, we've got a checkered flag to hand out. Championship implications on the line. and a win in the Full Throttle Real Racing Cup Series. You're watching LSRTV on iRacing Live. We'll be back in the race at the checkered flag in just a moment.
So what are you afraid?
Last year I was sitting at a desk as a sales manager, and now I'm official McLaren F1 simulated test driver.
So there's 1.4 behind.
This opportunity is huge.
That's it, 46 That's faster than the factory McLaren driver, and he's done 6 laps.
Let's go race.
Back live from Darlington, South Carolina. The lights are out on top of the iRacing.com pace car. It is a race start due up. Only 16 laps to go in the Southern 170 when we retake the green flag in the Full Throttle Real Racing Cup Series powered by English Auto L.L.C. Happy that you're still with us on LSRTV and iRacing Live. For Renars, picture perfect all night long. All your race leaders took 4 tires, and all of them are going to once again be playing catch up. For Renars is gone to turn 1.
Big restart for the 88, side by side for second. Comstock's going to take that position away from Falkingham to move into second. Now Falkingham's trying to defend over Michael Cozy Jr. They almost make contact in the middle of the corner, still almost make contact as they come off turn 2. Somehow they sort it out. Now here comes Kyle Kamer in the 8, looking to the inside of Cozy, trying to take that position away. Not going to happen, and now he's at a disadvantage as here comes Kalisto trying to make a move on him, and he's going to move into that 5th position.
Yeah, Kalisto is going to slide up in front of Kamer, take that spot away, and it'll have him scored 5th at the start-finish line. So it's Kalisto there, P5, Cozy in front is 4th, Daniel Falkenham is 3rd, Comstock 2nd, trying to chase down Andrew for 8 hours, but with how good that restart was, it'd be tough to make up that half a second that the Exalted Fords got.
Yeah, and you know, not really a great restart for Michael Cozy, you know, trying to get everything that he can. Was in 3rd previously and now in 4th right now under pressure from the 97. He has to give that same amount of pressure to the number 1 of Daniel Falkingham as Daniel gets really, really close to that wall. Again, we've seen it time and time again. You know, I don't think we're done wrecking just yet. You know, we still have a good handful of laps, over 10 laps to go here, and that is a lifetime here at this kind of a track. So, you know, these drivers just have to do everything right for these next couple handfuls of laps, and just got to do everything that they can here. Michael Cozy Jr. still under pressure from the 97 here in the first turn.
Under pressure from the 97 machine as Kalisto tries to set something up. Maybe the one division of Falkenham's going to be the one who makes a mistake, though. Here comes Cozy down the back. Looks to the inside. It'll be a fight for 3rd. The 77 tries to hold it, and you just can't get that speed without being able to go all the way up the hill. And now here comes Kalisto. Hill slice low. Will pretty much be dead even when they get down to turn 1. And oh, there's going to be contact. Cozy gets tagged. What a save, though, as he hangs on.
Wow, I cannot believe Cozy was able to do that right there, but they're still trying to gather things up as Kalisto's trying to get back in line. He's stuck between Kyle Kamer and David Washington now, And you can see just how much momentum that cost both of those drivers. They were running up there real close to Daniel Falkingham, and now they're a couple of seconds off. Big slide. I cannot believe how good these guys have been at saving their cars here tonight. We've seen, what now, Evan, 5-6 guys that have went sideways like that probably should have had their nights ended right in the moment, and somehow they managed to keep it under them and keep going.
Just keep it under, keep on going, and it's going to be enough for them, obviously, to just stay in this thing. Much better than wrecking it out. So Cozy does a great job, great piece of driving, and end up in front of all of the action at the end of the day, as Cameron and Callisto do end up getting into this mix, but all that fighting is going to take place behind the 77. So in the end, it actually gains him some time. Who would have thought?
Yeah, crazy things do happen, and, you know, great separation done by Andrew Freenars and David Comstock. You know, good separation, and then Michael Cozy all the way back, and now we have a little bit of a fight between Kyle Kammer and Lionel Callisto in turns number 3 and 4, coming out of 4 onto that front stretch. Lionel Callisto under attack from David Washington, so we'll see how this works out for him going into turn number 1. These drivers just fighting so hard, tooth and nail, here at this kind of a track, so really almost had a caution. Great job again by Michael Cozy Jr. here, but way to keep the green flag rolling, and just had the presence of mind to just know what he had to do to get it done.
Just trying to make it to the end of this race. We're now inside of 10 laps to go from Darlington. Freenars' gap is the 1.1 seconds with a big issue. Looks like that the 87 is going to be comfortable enough to close this one out in peace. Last, of course, an incident slows us down one more time. A fight due up for P5. You're going to be nervous anytime you go side by side to turn 3. It's Callisto against Sada. Kamer, they know, though, what happened last time. These couple of cars went 2 by 2, and Callisto, I think, a little bit nervous on committing there.
Indeed, but he did a good job at not making any contact right there, and they remain in position right now. Kyle Kamer in the 5th position, Callisto in 6th, and these guys just battling for every position they can get in the closing laps of this thing, and this is the best racing on the racetrack. Everybody else is pretty spread out. David Comstock is 1.2 seconds behind our race leader, so no contest for the race lead. These guys, however, putting on one heck of a show, and here comes David Washington sneaking up into the picture as well. We haven't really gotten to talk about him too much in his return to the Monday nights here in the Full Throttle Cup Series, but here he is running in the 7th position as we get down to it, the last 6 laps of this thing, and he has an opportunity at the top 5. If he can find a way to get around these couple of guys right in front of him, it would be a pretty big way for him to come back after being gone for quite a while.
Yeah, we'll see if maybe David's going to be able to close that one out as they fight in front of him. They may use up that little bit of their equipment they've got left into the dying laps of this race. 5 laps now left to go for race leader Andrew Freenars. Next time by at 4 to go is going to be the point at which I think that 88 machine really wants to get to, where a caution flag would take a late race restart out of the equation, and now at that point he would be certain that it's up to him to just close out those 4 laps in no time slower than 1.5 seconds compared to David Comstock, who sits at that 2.5 disadvantage, and there it is for Freenars. He needs 4 more smooth laps as he searches for race win number 4 on 2018.
Yes, he does, and Michael Cozy Jr. closing in ever so slightly on Daniel Falkingham, trying to do everything that he can at this kind of a track. He's closed the gap considerably, and he only has a few more laps to get it done. So can he get to that back bumper of Daniel, and can he get around him is the real question, because, he does get into the wall a little bit, but I believe so did Daniel, because really didn't lose any time at all to him, so continue to press hard.
Yeah, pressing hard all the way down to the end. You can bet that these drivers are going to be up and on it. Cozy, I think, tagged the fence there in the center of 1 and 2 just a little bit. I don't think there's enough sheet metal on the right side of those cars to continue to take those hits, but they're going to run it all the way down to the end of this one, side by side, the 98 and the, looks like the other car there, the 97. It's Callisto Washington for 6 and 7. David Washington unable to make the move down low. He drops out of it. 2 laps to go. Troy Hay wants to make it a late race fight for that spot also.
And these guys doing everything they can to try to make something out of these last couple laps. David Washington sideways in the middle of the corner. Here comes the the number 78 of Troy Haight. He looks to the inside of Washington as they head down the backstretch. Can he make that move down on the bottom of the racetrack? That's the hardest move to make on this racetrack. Not quite going to be able to do it. So David Washington will hold on to that position. Battle is on ahead of these guys as they come to the white flag.
White flag in the air one more time around for the track. Too tough to tame, and maybe that's going to be the case for a lot of these drivers. We've seen so many of them into the outside wall, spinning and crashing, and a lot of the cars still on the racetrack just trying to limp their way the final 1.366 miles, but that's not the case for Andrew Freitas. He was just too good tonight. Pulled the checkers, his fourth on the year. Freitas wins at Darlington and makes the Segment 2 title fight a lot more juicy with one race to go. Indianapolis on the calendar next week.
Yeah, that race is going to be all the more exciting, not just because it is Indianapolis, but because that Segment 2 championship is going to be on the line. Dylan Jones not having a good night here tonight, but needs to have a great night in Indianapolis if he wants to walk away with that Segment 2 championship under his belt.
He's got some celebrating to do. I think that was just about every single lap of this race for Andrew Freitas led, if not every single one of them. The 88 was in control. There were times when a car on a restart had a good jump out of the gate, was alongside him, Brian. There were many times where a car got on the bumper, but he didn't make mistakes on pit road. He didn't make mistakes in the restarts, and he didn't make mistakes in those battles. It's about as picture perfect of a night as you could get by Darlington standard. Look at this race car come back the other way around to the start-finish line. Look how clean the right side of that Ford Fusion is. Incredible run.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier on, I'm pretty sure this guy is the only one that did not get a Darlington stripe here tonight, and that's not something to be ashamed of or disappointed about, because that means you did the job exactly the way you needed to. We joke about how that's a big thing here at Darlington, but it's the one thing that you don't necessarily want to have, and he did a great job. I'm pretty sure he led every lap of this race, as you mentioned, Evan Pasoko, in an absolute dominant fashion for this team right here. And they have certainly raised the bar and made it known that they're going to challenge Dylan Jones as we head into the playoffs.
Yeah, they're letting him know that he's not going to run away with this one. Excited to hear what the 88 machine has to say. We'll catch up with him, the rest of your top finishers trackside in just a moment. We'll step aside, what a final time. And when we come back to the Darlington Raceway, the post-race show on the other side of the break. You've been watching LSRTV's coverage of the Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series powered by English Auto L.L.C. Still more to come. You're watching iRacing Live. This broadcast is the copyrighted work of LSRTV, and it may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Live Sim Racing LLC and iRacing.com Motorsport Simulations. LSRTV would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. And back live from the virtual Darlington Raceway for the LSR-TV post-race show following round number 19 of the Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series powered by English Auto LLC. We'll go trackside and talk to the top finishers in just a moment. First and foremost, happy that you're with us on your home for sim racing. Evan Pasoko, Brian Macklin, Trevor Valderrama upstairs with you. This is Gus Gardamusa in the production trailer. We take a look top to bottom at your LSR TV full race results for this evening, and it is Andrew Freitas with a no doubt about it. He comes home to the tune of 2.4 seconds over David Comstock, who's second, Daniel Falkenham, who is third. All those drivers going to be trackside with us momentarily. Michael Coates Jr., Kyle Kamer, also notable mentions as they can round out your top five. Lionel Calista, big pickup over the course of the night. He comes home in the number 6 spot. David Washington ends up 7th position, 8th in the final on the lead lap. That'll be Troy Haight. Rest of the cars out of this race. Spencer Preet comes home 9th. Brandon Bowie rounds out your top 10.
And Michael Guerrilla, who was so fast at the beginning of this race, got caught up in some incidents with some other drivers. He will come home in the 11th position. Dylan Jones, also fast at the beginning. He comes home in the 12th position after blowing the motor late in this thing. We have Daniel Eberhardt coming home 13th. Then Tom Morano is 14th. Gabe Wood and Travis Brown finished 15th and 16th. They were out very early in this race due to some incidents at the beginning of this thing. And that has been a look at your full field rundown for tonight. Now, Evan Pasoko, you're down in victory lane with the guy who has now won for the 4th time in 2018, Mr. Andrew Freenarge.
And what he's doing is he's promising to make the end of this segment here very exciting. Andrew Freenarge is your winner tonight for the Darlington Raceway. As we go down and chat with the driver of the 88. Andrew, congratulations. 4th for you on 2018. And you looked pretty good out there, but Dylan Jones had a little bit of a rough go. Means that segment 2 title's not necessarily all wrapped up. Headed into Indy next week. It was a big win for you tonight, and that 88 looked pretty untouchable.
Yeah, man, how about that car? That was almost as good as the one we had at Dover. Just really excited to pick it up tonight. It was a rough race, just chasing the racetrack, halfing up the cars around you, and trying to save tires at the beginning. I knew they'd matter in the long run. I think we showed that, and we did have short run speed. I think we showed at the end too. So just overall, a really, really good car tonight. And unfortunately, Dylan had a bad night. That would have been a fun race with him if he. I'm not really sure what happened. I think he hit the wall back there, but that would have been fun fighting it out with him, but he had a bad night. We win, and I think that will close the gap up quite a bit and make it a little interesting going into Indy, which we're also excited for.
It'll be a fun one to close out the segment next week, and then we'll get set for a new segment. Probably a couple of new faces will come in for that one, and then it gets really serious. But, it looked like many times tonight, drivers were so close to being able to get something on you, and they just couldn't do it. On pit road, very close a couple of times. On exit, always the 88 on top. A couple of those restarts right alongside you, always the 88 on top. They'd stick with you for a couple of laps, even take a peek to the inside. So it's not like the opportunities did not exist at all. They were certainly knocking on your door, but you were able to hold them off every single time. What was the key to being able to not only look very, very strong when we got a couple of laps of green flag racing, to be able to pull away and show, kind of flex those muscles and what that Exalta machine had, but also to be able, in those tight situations and those high pressure moments, not make mistakes and crumble into that?
Yeah, just ran a lot of practice this week, and like I said, I knew the tires fall off, and if we're going to get long runs, you need to have tires left on it, and the only way to do that, at least the only way I've found, is you had to slow up, and we showed that in the short run. I think that's the only real reason that we were being challenged there, and that was me just knowing it's hard to pass here. I give it to anybody who tried it. It's near impossible, so if I could slow up and just hold them off like we were able to do, I knew that we'd be able to pull away on the long run, and like I said, on the short run, we had a better car than what we were showing, and I think that last run proved it. We had a good car overall, but that was me just trying to play the strategy right, use the practice we had all week, and it worked out, and feels good.
We're going to await to get the official word on what that point gap is going to be, but it's certainly going to be a lot less than the 27 that you came in looking at. We know it's going to be a challenge for you, no doubt. Again, with the car count, going to be hard to make up a ton of points, and of course, it is going to require, I think, Dylan, to have another tough go, and you and him seem to have a very few of those way off nights, but you head to a place like at Indianapolis. The racetrack itself, nothing like Darlington, but I guess they're similar in the fact that, well, they're very tricky racetracks, not cookie cutter in any respect, so there's certainly racetracks that present the challenge. Do you feel like you can go in there, put on a good performance, and maybe see where the cards fall as far as trying to bump yourself up from second to first before it's all done?
Yeah, we definitely have a good card for next week. The NASCAR E-Fix Series was here all week. We were running that, and we had a bunch of good runs. Dylan was in some of those races, and we have confidence going into that, but I really look at last week at Watkins Glen. I screwed up the bus stop, and I think that's 5 points right there. If we were able to pick up the win there, that would have been a lot closer going to next week. So Dylan's just gonna have to falter next week, which I don't hope on him at all. He's a lot of fun to race. He's a really good teammate, and I truthfully like racing him for the win rather than just for the segment championship here.
We look forward to, of course, the segment coming to a close, and then you guys duking it out for another couple of weeks for the real championship. But it was a stellar performance for you tonight, and we'll let you get out of here and get to the practice scene for next week. It'll certainly be fun at Indy. But Andrew, before we let you jet out of here, sponsors, shout-outs, all of those good folks. Who makes it happen for you Monday nights?
I got to say a big thanks to everybody on Aegis. Dylan, like I said, I know he even has tornado warnings in his area, so I hope all's okay over there. Dave ran tonight. He's usually on the box for us the past few weeks. He's been a big help. Daniel, Steve came in, gave some advice there. Just everybody in Aegis, Ross Cato. You guys for broadcasting. Always love watching it back. My dad for the support. My brother for building the computers. All the fans for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. It was definitely fun to drive out there. I hope it was fun to watch. And all the guys who come out every week, like you said, we have smaller fields, but I do like racing against everyone out there, and they race me clean, and I try to race them back clean. So appreciate all of that.
We enjoyed watching it up top, Andrew. I hope it was fun for you guys down there trackside as well. Thanks for giving us your time here post-race as well. Thanks for supporting the series, Andrew. Again, congratulations on the win. And we still got 11 weeks left on 2018. I think it's only going to get a little bit more exciting from this point. So we look forward to catching up with you soon. Good luck next week.
Thanks so much.
Race winner tonight in the Southern 170, Andrew Ferninar's checkered flag at number 4 on 2018. Another driver who had a very good night, a little bit of ups and downs at times, but it is a P2 when it's all said and done for the 42 of David Comstock, and trackside with him is Brian Macklin.
Indeed I am, and down here with David Comstock. David, this is your best finish in 2018. The next best finish that you had came all the way back in June at Michigan, a third place run there. Take us through your night and obviously what led to you getting your runner-up finish.
Just pretty much raced the racetrack the whole night. I didn't have much practice time, barely got on last second. And just everything seemed to fall in place, missed some pretty cool wrecks. And yeah, was able to be fortunate to bring it home second.
How challenging is it to get around this racetrack, especially when you have some of the longer green flag runs that we saw here tonight? We saw everybody getting extremely loose on corner exit, and how do you manage that throughout the night and not actually make that mistake and spin the car around like we saw so many people do?
It's all in throttle control. I mean, you go around and just try not to pretty much go full throttle until you're almost out of the corner. Anytime you try to get anything more than, I mean, at least for me, 80% throttle, it was just, especially on old tires, you're sideways. So, yeah, just saving tires, just doing everything you can to just pretty much race the racetrack. Guys would get runs, and, they get, a run on you, is let them go. And, hope they do the same when you come back to them when they wear their stuff out.
Absolutely, and obviously this is a tough subject to bring up, but you're winless so far in 2018. You are in a position to make the playoffs here after next week at Indianapolis. What do you need, or what does your car need just to get a little bit better where you can challenge guys like Andrew Freenars and Dylan Jones and get back to victory lane in 2018?
Just more seat time. I haven't had a chance to get a lot of seat time here this year. Just been too busy in my own personal schedule to be able to take time during the week and stuff, and run laps and get used to things before our night here that we come in a race. So if I just get a bit more time, maybe I can try to figure something out that and figure out what those other guys are doing and try to be able to keep pace with them better. Because just on the start, last restart, I was able to kind of keep pace a little bit, and then I really lost a lot after a few laps, and then I was able to kind of keep pace again. There's just a lot of inconsistencies. So it's just more so on my part, just needing more seat time and just need to get back in the groove of things here.
Absolutely, and we look forward to seeing you get back into that groove and get ready for the playoffs here in a couple of weeks' time. Before we let you go, David, sponsor shout-outs. Who makes it happen for you on the 42 machine?
Yeah, I'd like to thank all my teammates on here, all the support they give for every single week. We all give each other every time we come out here to race. Real Sim Racing, LSRTV, you guys broadcasting every single week. Sponsors in the car, Gear Mercer Trucking, RacingBids.com. Go to Facebook on Racing Bids every Thursday at 7 p.m. There's live auctions that go on, so go check that out. Jonathan does a good job of running that and get some cool stuff that he puts on every single week. So go find some unique things and put your bid out to see if you can get it. And Moss Energy, JD Laird, JDR Graphics, him painting my car every single week. Hick and Jix, EJ Brakes, all the fans, friends, family, everybody watching. Thank you guys.
There he is, David Comstock. Congrats on your runner-up finish here tonight, and we'll see you next week at Indianapolis.
Thank you.
Finishes second here tonight. His best finish in 2018. David Comstock with a great run. Now, I believe, Trevin, you're down on pit road with our third place finisher, Mr. Daniel Falkingham.
Down here with our biggest mover of the night, started 15th, went to third, the number 1 of Daniel Falkingham. Daniel, how tough was it to move through all of these cars at a track such as this one?
Super tough, I can say that. I mean, it was a challenge. This track is just a challenge. Just playing. I mean, it's really hard to get around. I mean, I really wasn't that concerned of trying to move up through the field because I screwed up my qualifying lap. So I just want to try to ride around in the back, try to take care of the car and stuff. But I slapped the wall like 4 times in like the first run. So yeah, it was tough to handle like in the first part. But once I got more used to the car, more used to the track and stuff, I was starting to like click a few people off. But yeah, it's just so hard to pass. I just pretty much took advantage of the pit stops and some of the restarts, and eventually paid off at the end.
What was your strategy really coming into this thing? Because, you know, you have an idea coming into a race like this one, but then, you know, you have cautions every now and again, and that kind of may mess things up in your eyes for a little bit of a strategy play. So how'd you have to adjust if you had to?
Yeah, the main key was just survival. That's pretty much all it was. I mean, yeah, like I said earlier, it was pretty tough to pass, so just all about taking care of the car and stuff. And there was times when I really couldn't pass. I should try to lay back, try to take care of my tires a little bit in case we got that long run, which we really never did. Like, just pretty much the first run was like the biggest long run we had. So yeah, just survival. I mean, so many cars wrecked out, and then I had that incident with Eberhard. I'm just glad I didn't damage the car even more. I mean, not sure how my right rear looked after that, but I was just glad to keep going after that little incident with him, and yeah, I managed to capitalize there at the end.
Absolutely, and it was very entertaining to watch. Now we go from one hard track, Darlington, to another hard track, which is Indianapolis. Really, what is your plan there? You know, you're a little bit further back in the point standings, so really, what's going to be the thing that you're going to be able to continue to press on to get some points and then maybe propel yourself for some momentum into that 2019 season?
Yeah, it's a good question. Indy, I did a few A-fixed races like last week at Indy, like when the Real Life Cup Series was off, and I didn't do the greatest, so I got a little bit of practice to do before next week's race comes around, but as I can say, I'm more determined than ever to try to get some more good finishes. I've had some really good finishes the last few weeks, so I'm going to try to keep that streak going.
Absolutely good plan. And before we let you go, Daniel, any sponsor shoutouts? Who gets that number 1 machine rolling off the grid?
Yes, I got to thank First Rate Bait. They actually sponsored me in real life, and I talked them into sponsoring me for this campaign. I'm really glad they decided to hop on and do this. I also got to thank Cameron Colby's Eye Paints for painting up my primary car. I had this car for the night because, you know, Darlington and throwback, and I mean, I kind of feel bad because this is the one race where I run a different scheme and I don't have like all my sponsors on the car and stuff. I was thinking about that all day. I kind of feel really bad, but I really wanted to shout out all those guys. So thanks First Rate Bait and Colby's Eye Paints for giving me their sponsors throughout the season.
Absolutely, and congratulations on your third place finish. We'll see you in Indianapolis.
All right, thank you.
All right, Evan, back to you.
Well, big thanks as always. Top 3 finishers joining us post-race every single week. Tonight it was Andrew Friedars who comes home as your race winner, David Comstock and Daniel Falkingham, 1, 2, and 3. So a big tip of the cap to them. And another great show at Darlington. The late race restarts were there, yes, Trevin, but it was not enough to overcome the 88 machine. So for all of that excitement, I think we had a pretty good idea from the start of this one after about 30 laps who had the best car, and it was really just a question of, does that mistake come? Does he get caught up in a lapped car wrecking? It didn't happen. And Andrew Farinar is doing his best to give all the folks at home a show because Indianapolis is going to be a ton of fun next week as he tries to snatch away that top spot on the Segment 2 title.
Yes, Indianapolis is going to be an exciting one. This is the last race of the regular season, last race of the Segment 2 championship, and then we go on into playoffs, Las Vegas, Richmond, and Charlotte in that first round. So just going to be all sorts of excitement from here on out. The past 7 weeks, I'd like to mention, has been dominated by Dylan Jones and Andrew Freenar. So will that trend continue? Probably. We've seen these guys so dominant here, or so dominant in weeks past, so I'm sure that momentum is just going to continue to carry them on forward. Dylan Jones not really having a good night tonight, but I'm sure he'll pick it up as soon as we get back to Indy.
And if we head to Indianapolis, it's going to be right next up on the docket, Brian. So as we close out the regular season, and as we close out this segment championship fight, no weeks off, it's next Monday from Indianapolis. What do we expect to see at the Brickyard?
Well, I think you're going to see a lot of guys going after one last chance to go to victory lane before the playoffs start. There's no prize for getting a victory before the playoffs, but it's just that pride of going in there and having the momentum as you get into the playoffs. I think everybody wants to try to figure out how they can beat Dylan Jones and Andrew Freenars right now. They've won every race since the beginning of July. They have not lost a race. The last time somebody not named Dylan Jones or Andrew Freenars won was when Michael Guerrero won back at Sonoma at the beginning of June. So these guys have got to figure out what they're going to do to beat them, and I think that's exactly what we're going to start seeing when we get to Indianapolis. And then once we roll into the playoffs, it's anybody's game as far as I can tell.
And we look forward to seeing the start of that third segment. We saw it at the transition from segment 1 to 2. We get a lot of new faces and a couple more drivers to jump in. So that third segment will officially start September the 17th. We'll have info if you want to get involved in this on how you can sign up in a little bit, but it'll come after the segment 2 finale, which comes next week. If you want to watch some live racing action in between now and then, you can find our full broadcast schedule on our website, www.liveseracing.com. But of course, the best way to stay up to date with us is engage with us on social media. You can like us on Facebook at facebook.com/LSRTV official. And you can also follow us on Twitter at LSRTV for more information. On behalf of our entire team at Live Sim Racing L.L.C., for everybody who makes real sim racing operate on a weekly basis, for Kyle Barnes and everybody else behind the scenes, and of course, for your team tonight, for myself, Evan Pasoko, for Brian Backlund, Trevin Valderrama, and Cisco Scaramouche. So we want to thank you for tuning in and congratulate Andrew Ferdinand's 4-time winner on 2018. He looks to seal the Segment 2 title away from Dylan Jones. It'll be a 2-car fight next time out at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. That race comes on Monday, September the 3rd, and that race and every race for the rest of the year for the Full Throttle Sim Racing Cup Series powered by English Auto LLC can be found right here on LSR TV, your home for sim racing. Until next time, though, good night from Darlington. We'll catch you from the Brickyard.